All right. Then thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk a bit about fraud, and we have brought one of our customers. He's Nati, Michael from Nati. In fact, maybe give a quick introduction, Michael. Who are you? What drives you? Uh, what keeps you up at night?
Sure. So I'm Michael Nemerich. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Nati. I've been with the company since 2018. What drives me is Nati is the certification body for translators and interpreters in Australia and interpreters in New Zealand. We've been doing it a long time, since 1977. And for us, it's really about equity to services for anyone that doesn't speak English well around the country. So ensuring that we do that well and properly is what keeps me up at night, because it's actually a whole of society issue.
Well, thank you. That was quick and concise. Thank you. So these are spotlight chats. It's also the first time that I'm doing it. So I excuse anyone who watches this video for my still amateurish approach of this. Maybe we'll improve in the future. Who knows? But why did we bring in Nati? It's mainly because of your journey, because you started in 1977, which I don't think that digital exams were as big as a thing back then than they are now. So you have to actually do the full journey of going from an on-site experience to a remote experience. So maybe talk us a bit about that process, what happened there.
Yeah, of course. So I think from 1977, as I mentioned, Nati's set up to ensure that people that don't speak English well in Australia have access to services by ensuring that the translators and interpreters have the skills required to do their job. So it's really a consumer protection style scheme. In one of the big changes to Nati was in 2012, we did a full review of our system. We called it Improvement to Nati Testing, and we came up with several key recommendations that hadn't been implemented before. So prior to 2018, when our current system began, which we call certification, we used pre-recorded audio files for interpreter tests. We did them on cassette tapes mostly. And we had handwritten translation tests. And so they were both seen as being non-reflective of real-world environments. So we did a lot of other changes as well, but one of the big changes was we wanted computerized translation tests, and we wanted live interpreting tests as one of the options, with live role players with actors. So it's two of the things that sort of happened in 2018 that we came on board with. So when we started in 2018, we had, for the translation tests, we would have people come into our offices, but because we only ran translation tests sort of a few times a year, we used to supply the test as a Word document on a USB stick, and people would have to bring their own laptops into our venues, and we would have to have a large venue so everyone could come and plug them in. And then they plug them in, then we would have to try and continually walk around the venue to make sure people weren't just downloading the test onto their laptop or cheating on it. And then the live interpreting tests, well, we used to get, there's two types. We had one that still used a recording, but we had someone sit in a room with them and play an MP3 file, and then they would talk to the computer. We had an invigilator sitting in the room with them. And then the live ones, we would have live actors in the room and someone video recording it. So back in 2019, I like to think we got ahead of it a little bit, but in 2009, we started talking to Televic and saying, this is ridiculous. What can we do? I think we met you at a trade conference. And so we'd started some initial conversations, but honestly, at the time, I thought that it would take years for people to accept that we could do things online securely. And so that it was a bit of a dream. We were just continuing a conversation, but never really did anything too serious with it. And then obviously everyone knows COVID hit in March 2020, which... Yeah, almost forgot. That sped up our development timeline quite quickly, to be fair. But it was good because we'd already had the initial conversation, so we weren't coming into this blind. When COVID hit, Nati was running approximately 15 to 17,000 tests a year in about 50 languages. As I mentioned, people would come in to our test venues. At most, we could test maybe 200, 250 people a day. We have venues all around Australia. Large amounts of cost, I guess, in having one-to-one human playing audio, making sure people weren't cheating. So when COVID hit, to keep the business going, we just went completely to Microsoft Teams at the time. And that was a way to continue delivering tests like we did in person, but it was on Microsoft Teams. So no real security, but it kept us going. And then we talked to Televic, but we also looked at a few other companies at the same time. For 3 months, we paid multiple companies to get us to a proof of concept. We dropped the other companies out and then continued development with Televic. So from COVID hitting and us switching online, we did 14,000 tests via Microsoft Teams. With huge staff dislocation and the like from their houses and making it work. And then we ran our first translation tests online in October 2020. So within 6 months, we were up and running with translation tests. We have a test called Community Credentialed Language, which is a simple interpreter test. We launched that in January 2021. By January 2022, 98.5% of our tests were online, and we tested candidates in 90 countries that year. And then this year, we're now at, we'll test a bit over 35,000 candidates in 98 languages this year.
Do you still have some on-site aspects, or is it just fully remote now?
The only ones that so the majority of our tests, probably 97%, are via the Assessment Queue platform. The only ones we don't do it are still the live interpreter tests that use role players. They're mostly online, except for Australian Sign Language, which is called Auslan, because we do about 20% of those tests online. But because of the aspect of webcams and the quality, sign language is still preferred in person. So that's really the only ones we do in person now.
I can get that. I mean, if you can see the sign language, then yeah, you have quite a big of a problem, I think. So maybe to pick up on that, so you moved from on-site to remote exams. And because the topic of this talk, we might not forget it, that it's fraud within exam settings. I can imagine that going digital opens up a whole plethora of more fraud possibilities, because I know, being a student myself, I have cheated. I'm sorry, Mom, if you're watching this, I have cheated on some exams. But it was all in person, and it was quite, I just put a little bit of a note in my pen, for example, had some formula on that kind of cheating. I think those are still possible remotely in some sense. But being remote also opens up so much more, because you're not present in the room, I think. So how do you guys deal with that? What kind of measures are there in place? I mean, I know some of them because I've helped develop them, of course, but I would like to hear what is, apart from technology and proctoring, etc., what do you guys do further?
Yeah, I think there's 2 key points I'd make at the start, which is people have tried to cheat, as you've mentioned, forever. And being in your house probably makes that easier than if you're in a test venue. So when we're in test venues, you used to try and make sure that people gave their bags to you, put them in lockers. But we found back in the day, people with handwritten notes stuffed into their sleeve, or someone would go to the toilet and they'd post up answers on the door, that sort of stuff. The second thing is people think that online is cheap. And if you think of it like a cost saving alone, that's when you come into trouble. So very much what NAATI's done from the start is it's a bit of an arms race, to be honest. We find new ways of people trying to cheat. We introduce controls. They find new ways to do that. We implement controls. But look, overall, and before I go into what we're seeing in the cheating, overall, the capacity that we can do now compared to what we did in the past is greatly improved by online. And we've got decades of data on pass rates for tests, and we see no material difference between now and the whole of history. So I would be naive to think that someone hasn't cheated successfully, but I don't believe it's material in the number of tests that we're running, because we're tracking pass rates, and we do, it's just under, it was about 0.7% of candidates that we banned for life last year for cheating. So what we saw in the initial days, we started setting up, we set up test sessions much like we would do in person. So we would do in the old days, we would do, set the day would start at 10 a.m, it would finish at 5 p.m, and then people would take their tests accordingly. But because of the online platform, people could then choose to pick whatever time they wanted to log on that. What we found in that scenario was people would come into we would have a couple of people come into the test room at 10 a.m, and then we would have like 135 people join at 4:45. So they were trying to get the advantage of coming through. We also found people quite quickly, either through excellent rote learning skills, be able to transcribe the entire test, upload that onto WeChat and try and sell it to people, or they would sneak a recording device under the desk, quite a small phone or small recording device, and upload that material. So the couple of mitigations we implemented from that, we shortened, we did something slightly different. The first one was lots of new material. So the money that we used to spend on venues and the like, we just pumped into creating new material, so people weren't going to be able to see what someone else had seen before. The team now creates about 300 new test materials a month, I think, for the different test types that we run. The test sessions, the 10 till 5, what we started trying was halfway through the test session, we would change the test material. So the 2 people that had learnt it, for the 130 people that joined after near the end, they would get a new test material and they would all freak out. And I would comment that all of our tests have been using proctoring. So we've got the webcam, the audio, the screen share, and a secondary mobile camera. And I think that's been critical for the integrity of our testing. And we have a group of people that both run the tests, do the live support while the people are taking the test, looking for people acting suspiciously or cheating in live time, real time, but then also do a post test review to really give a deep dive look at what's happening. So I think that's been important as well. Again, if I go back to that initial point, people think that online should be cheap. You set it up and it's 1,000 candidates and 1 person. Definitely not for us. We run a ratio of about 1 to 5 candidates to human invigilators at the time.
Well, it's almost as much as on-site monitoring, for example.
Yeah, again, I think the benefit of online is accessibility and scale.
Yep.
And if you're looking at it purely from a cost, I think it's a failure. It is cheaper, but yeah, I think that's not the way to look at it. So what we found is people would then freak out if they got these new test materials that we implemented halfway through. And then the way that they tried to get around that was, what we would see is people's shock on their face when they saw that they heard something they weren't expecting. And then we would literally see them pull their Ethernet cable out of their computer and then say to us, sorry, I had technical issues. Can you please reschedule me to another day? We started banning people for saying, and we said, we can see you pull out the cable from your computer. We've got you on two cameras. You shouldn't be doing that. And then the next iteration of that was pretty much at the same time people would cough. And then when they coughed, someone, we assume in another room, turned off the modem, which killed the internet. They're like, I didn't touch the cable, what are you saying? And we're like, well, 100 of you pulled the plug within 3 seconds of each other, so we think that's incorrect. So they were
it's creative.
It's very creative. And this is why it's an arms race, I guess. So, ebb and flow with that. The next iteration for us then was we shortened the test sessions. So we made it a 45-minute, I think we had a couple of iterations, but we've settled on a 45-minute window where people can log in and join it. So that doesn't give us much time for someone to try and remember it and memorize whatever's happening. We also now do, I mentioned before, hundreds of new materials. So even in the same test session, we're now saying there could be a dozen different materials on the same day, on the same session. So that gets rid of that problem. So the candidates then evolved to be slightly more sophisticated in ways of trying to cheat. Some hilariously not sophisticated at the same time. But what we saw in the starting point was we've definitely seen people in the room. That's an easy one to pick up. But we went from, we used to say to people that they had to wear headphones, for example. We did that for two reasons. One was audio quality, but the second one was so they couldn't have a recording device in the room to record the material and then upload it. But what we found was people's headphones started getting bigger. And then we started checking under headphones. We saw people taping AirPods under over-ear headphones. And so they were getting feedback from someone outside the room on what to answer. So we banned headphones. And this is the ties in with the link to new test materials. Now that we take headphones away to get rid of that cheating option, people were starting to record the material. So you have to have constant new material then. We've also had, banned headphones, got rid of earphones. We've seen other people that forget they're being recorded. So that, I mean, that's not the sophisticated cheating, sorry. But people you would see them pull a phone out from somewhere, walk a little way away from the computer and ask someone for help. We've seen the copy and paste from Google Translate into a translation test. So unsophisticated, well, yeah, but you see them because people forget they're getting recorded, or they think that we're not actually watching the recording. They think that it's just there for show or to scare them. But the iterations now are like after those, we had a spate of lip syncing, which if you put it on my bingo card for the year, I never thought I would see or even consider that it was going to be a thing. So we've seen people hiding under the bed covers in a room. We've seen people install fake curtains and someone hides behind it while the person in front of the screen pretends to interpret. The funniest one was someone that it was a female candidate and it was clearly a male talking in a high-pitched fake female voice, and we're like, that's definitely not you. And they, yes, it is. And so we called them like the
Monty Python sketch.
It's unbelievable. And so the team would literally call the mobile phone number we've got on and watch them pick up and then put the phone below the desk while the person kept talking in a high-pitched voice.
Not suspicious at all.
That's fun. Not suspicious at all. So that was a fun iteration. Again, when you see someone with a shower curtain in the middle of their living room, that's a pretty clear tip that something's going on. But the team when they do it, and they're skilled professionals, they notice stuff like when someone's hand's moving and they can see a glow from a mobile phone. That's the sort of stuff you have to be picking up as well. The latest non-sophisticated method is we have seen a spate of people wearing wigs, and the wigs to give them bigger hair to hide AirPods under. So just making sure that people show their ears is been important. Again, that's not something I ever thought that I would see, is people wearing wigs to try and cheat in a test, but we've got it, and lots of them this year, surprisingly. The more sophisticated ones that we're seeing now is because we're proctoring the screen. People are using remote desktop connections, so the screen we're looking at is not necessarily the one they're looking at. And the way we're picking that up is from the secondary mobile camera, making sure that's placed in the right part of the room so we can see a second view of what that screen is. So, you know, one of the ones I saw late last year was the screen was purple in front of the candidate, but the screen webcam, the screen recording that we saw was white. So being able to pick up on stuff like that. Yeah.
Maybe a bit of a question on my end is, when you catch someone cheating, there are some consequences on their end. You mentioned being banned for life of joining these tests, for example. But I can also imagine that there's an appeal process or something. I mean, they can appeal, they're not cheating, trying to convince you that they're not cheating, even though you're quite certain. How many cases are there where it's like they might potentially be cheating, but we can't say for sure? There are some kind of little things that we pick up, but we don't see any clear earplugs. I've seen a recent presentation of Duolingo, for example, and they had shown some earbuds that are actually inserted practically near the eardrum instead of being a visible earpiece, and you had to remove them even with magnets. So they had one candidate that's also couldn't remove it anymore or something and had to go to the hospital. That's how they discovered something like that. But
that's not good for them.
It's not good for them, but I mean, the stakes of these exams are quite high. So I can also get why some people are cheating. It's the promise of a better future as well that's linked to it. So
yeah,
that's also why it's a deterrent. Maybe the way you punish them is a deterrent as well. But it's also quite a harsh decision sometimes. And you need to have enough material to kind of make sure that it's the right decision and that that person was actually cheating. So I was just wondering, how does that process look for you guys?
Yeah, for us, we always start with an allegation, I guess. We believe you've been cheating. Here is our evidence. So we'll not always straight away, but at some point we will provide video or the webcam or go, this is why we think so. In a lot of cases, that's clear enough. Definitely one of those cases, and it was nearer the start with the AirPods under earphones, but we've seen it as well with the lip syncing. The cadence of the voice isn't natural, so we know something's going on, we just can't prove what. In those scenarios, we will communicate to the candidate, we think there has been an attempt to gain an advantage. For these reasons, we don't have verifiable proof. So we will enforce an in-person test potentially in those cases. We have test venues, you will need to come in because we can't trust that your environment's secure enough.
Okay, fair enough.
So,
I mean, it makes sense to then still do an in-person test. I'm also wondering a bit, there are a lot of unsophisticated ways that they try to cheat. Do you see any increase in that amount of unsophisticated approaches, or is it maybe a worrying trend that it's less and less unsophisticated and becoming more sophisticated over the years? Like they're becoming smarter. I imagine there are also organized rings that do this. If you have specific for one exam, I know for Duolingo, for example, they have the English test and they have actual people undercover everywhere to infiltrate cheating rings that actually focus purely on the English exam. I imagine that there will be similar things for you guys as well.
Yeah, and we see spikes with different groups, definitely because of that. We know that a coaching style clinic has told a group of their students this is the way to get around it, whether it's AirPods or whether it's lip syncing. And so we will see a group all at once. And then when enough of them have been banned for life, that sort of stops and then it may pick up again elsewhere. Definitely some of the tools that we're seeing so we're interpreting and translating. So the tools for live transcription and translation are definitely more prevalent than they have been because of the accessibility and of those tools. So, screen recording is very good. Room scans are very good for someone trying to hide a device, but I don't know if it's I would think the percentage of people trying to cheat remains about the same, and it's just the type of cheating that varies depending on the day.
That evolves. Fair enough. And I can also see that you mentioned transcription models with AI. It's just a whole new kind of worms of possible ways to cheat. Like, for example, in just written exams that we also host in our platform, we see Gen AI has been, the death of certain question types, to be exact. Essay questions, for example, those are often dead. My sister still studies. She says that it's like the standard procedure now of students to use ChatGPT for any writing task, for example, and it's not possible to detect AI, or at least with 100% certainty, especially for the Gen AI things. Is there something similar to that within the more interpreting context? You mentioned transcription, but for example, cheating-wise, deepfakes are also becoming better. I think that potentially live deepfakes are also something that's in the works or already here, and we don't know it yet.
I think we've got an advantage there. We did have someone report just 2 weeks ago that they thought that live deepfakes were being used to try and game the test. I certainly wouldn't rule out the technology being possible. However, at the moment, I think we've got the tools that we need to be able to pick it up. The real benefit for the proctoring that we use via Assessment Queue is we've got multiple camera angles. So even if you could get the webcam face one right, we've got a secondary one that records the person as they're talking and the tertiary one from the side. And I don't think that the technology could be proven wrong, but I think because we've got 3 images of the face all at once, I just don't think it's going to be good enough or quick enough. So certainly wouldn't rule it out, but I think the other benefit we've got is the type of tests we run, not just multiple choice. The translation, it's quite obvious if large amounts of text appear without someone having typed it. So that's a reasonably easy test to go, that doesn't look like they're typing correctly. Sort of the same with the interpreting tests and voice. You can tell when someone's not talking naturally as well. So I think we have some benefit in the fact of the test type we run lends itself to being a little bit more tricky to cheat in.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's quite cool to actually talk to a customer for once and actually see their perspective on things, because when you are developing an application like Assessment Queue, for example, we're just focused on purely what we are doing, but sometimes we miss the broader scope as well. So it's really cool to see. And also that's also why I chose to host this topic, is just purely because I find the creativity of humanity never ceases to amaze. If it's a wig, if it's an earbud that's taped within a headphone, for example, or just maybe a water bottle with some things scribbled inside, which is maybe potentially a method that I once used, but I will neither confirm nor deny this. But it's really cool to see it, in fact. I mean, it's kind of worrying in a way at how fast things are evolving, but it's also so fascinating and so cool at the same time. I think for you guys as well, it's an infinitely challenging job, which also might make the work fun as well.
Yeah, and I think that's probably another interesting part about it. When we started this, we would run tests the same as we did in person. And what we found was there was a lot of staff burnout in those early days. And that's the reason is the cognitive load of staring at a screen, looking for people trying to cheat or trying to make sure that they do the right thing, or the technical part of it, was just high cognitive load, quite repetitive and challenging. So we've had to evolve even the staffing methods and how we do that. So now we only test for sort of half a day, and we give more time for that team actually does the recordings of new materials in their afternoon, and that's a way for them to get a break from the constant dinging of a chat box or the constant staring at a screen. So we've had to adapt even work patterns over time just to ensure that we can keep up with the new world of it.
That keeps it challenging.
That's it.
Right. I mean, I think we're running out of time. I've been giving a time box of 25 minutes. I think we've surpassed that, so I'm really sorry to Melis.
I talk a lot as well. I apologize.
I really like to listen to you talk too, so that's a perfect combination. Maybe to really recap, so the thing that stuck with me from what you told us is that going remote is not just it saves some money, but you just have to reinvest the money somewhere else. It's just changing where you invest in, and for you guys, it was more content creation and more resources on monitoring the offsite exams themselves. So that's something that I find really interesting because it's the right mentality. If you want to scale, you have to invest somewhere else. If you change your current process, it's not just saving your money, it's just pumping it somewhere else to actually allow you to have a hockey stick effect and scale up to 35K sessions, it was that you said. So
yeah,
that's really interesting. Maybe to finish off, do you have any tips for people that want to go remote with their exams, for example? Maybe specifically for fraud. Is it don't be deterred or something?
Don't be deterred is the starting point for sure. Definitely touch again on that point of make sure you're investing in ways. Don't just try and replicate what you do in the real world online. It won't work. And be persistent, I think, is the other one. I know of lots of organisations that have gone online and then scaled back. I definitely know of universities that have gone back to handwriting on site because they just can't deal with it. They haven't. For us, I think one of the big things which is different to a university or some other organisations, if you only run testing twice a year or 6 times a year, for example, having a skilled staff that can do that and then go back to other jobs is hard, and I can see why they would revert back. But if you commit to it with the right team, it becomes a lot easier. So persistence and staff development and rostering, I think, is the missing link occasionally too.
All right. Thank you. Wise words, I'd say. Thank you very much, Michael, for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I think we can wrap it up here. So thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Rada.